أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. واعلموا أن فيكم رسول الله لو يطيعكم في كثير من الأمر لعنتم ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان وزينه في قلوبكم وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان أولئك هم الراشدون فضلا من الله ونعمه والله عليم حكيم. وإن طائفتان من المؤمنين اقتتلوا فأصلحوا بينهما فإن بغت إحداهما على الأخرى فقاتلوا التي تبغي حتى تفيء إلى أمر الله فإن فاءت فأصلحوا بينهما بالعدل وأقسطوا إن الله يحب المقسطين. إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعد الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Barakallahu feekum everyone for coming, for taking your time out. Everybody has a busy schedule these days. So firstly, I would like to thank everybody here for attending. A sign of you coming here shows that you guys care about this ummah and you want to do some action and khair towards it. This talk today is titled Unity, and I would like everybody here to maybe just take a couple of seconds and ask yourself a very sincere question on what you think unity is. So everybody take a second, hold in your heart what you think unity is, and then kind of judge that against what we are talking about today. And if everybody here, some of the answers you have are such as good character, brotherhood, helping each other in the community. These are all very important aspects of unity. But is this all Islam came with when it defined unity for us? Is this all that is meant to be? Because as we sit here tonight, we are witnessing an ummah which is in a crisis. We got massacres in Gaza, we got persecution in East Turkestan, we got humiliated all across the globe. And we are one ummah and one body. But we are bleeding in over 100 different places. And with over 1 billion Muslims, the question on everybody's mind is, why are we so weak? Why are we so powerless? Why are our voices scattered? Why do our tears fall, but nothing changes? Maybe the problem is not that we do not care. Maybe the problem is that we have in ourselves forgotten what unity looks like and what it actually is. Tonight's talk is not emotional, it's very much foundational. It's a kind of unity which gave this ummah strength, leadership, courage and dignity. A unity which was rooted in a system and a structure, not only empty slogans. So this type of unity is a chance for us to reconnect with that legacy, not only as a means of just thinking about the past, but as a means of thinking now what is missing from our present. So again, I asked you guys, you brothers, all of you here who attended, what is unity? So hold this of your answer in your heart and engage with inshallah the speaker today, and we will reconnect at the end inshallah. Barakallah feek. With that, I would like to introduce Ustadh Usamah. He has studied in Egypt and he is a khatib in his local masjid based in Luton. He is a teacher of the Arabic language as well. He has his own institute. What's it called? Ta'allam Institute, inshallah. So I'll pass it over to him.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu al-atamani al-akmalani ala shafi'il ummati Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa tabi'een. Amma ba'd, dear respected brothers, honored elders, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is my first time actually in delivering something in Slough. So if I'm a little bit nervous, it's because the energy in Slough is a little bit powerful. But jazakum Allahu khairan. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your attendance coming today. You know, you've only come here on the back of wanting khair for the ummah. In a time where you could be doing 1,000,001 other things, you've decided to take time out on your weekend to come here for the sake of who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, in this talk, I'm not going to go on for too long. I want to mention, inshallah, 2 examples, and I want to try and contrast these 2 examples to our reality today to make some sense of why we are in the situation and predicament that we are in today. 210 years or 215 years after the hijrah of Rasulullah, there was a man by the name of Mu'tasim Billah. He became the Khalifa, the leader, the Caliph of Baghdad at that time. And what happened at that time, Baghdad became the central point of power for the entire Islamic empire, the whole region. Baghdad became the powerhouse. So the power was there. What happened a few years after is one of the Roman leaders, he set out from Constantinople, which is current day Istanbul, with an army of 100,000 soldiers. He came into the territory of the Muslims in northern current day Iraq, and he attacked and destroyed the lands of the Muslims. And this leader, he didn't just stop there. What happened similarly to the uncle of Rasulullah, Hamza radiallahu anh, these Romans, they mutilated the bodies of the Muslims. So they cut off the ears, they ripped out the eyes, and they cut off the noses, just to show their hatred for Islam and the Muslims. And from what naturally takes place during wars, is some people are taken as captives. So there was one particular woman, and this is actually recorded in 2 sources of Islamic history. in Ibn Athir's book known as Al-Kamil and in At-Tabari's book of history. So what happens is one of these women from the Muslims, she is mocked by the Roman leader and she is smacked on her face. This is just one woman. I'm not contrasting with thousands and millions of Muslims that have been persecuted in current day reality. I'm talking just about one woman. And the next story is also going to speak about one woman. Just to show you the ghira. Obviously we know what ghira is, right? The jealousy, the love, the respect, the status of just one woman, what it had an impact on the leader. So when the woman got smacked and ridiculed, she cried. And she cried out, wa mu'tasima. In the Arabic language, when you place waw, alif in front of a noun, and you place a ha at the end of the noun, you're crying out to it. It's similar to what Qutb said in the battle when he said, wa islama, like where's Islam? And today, wa mu'tasima, like where's Mu'tasim? I'm crying for Mu'tasim. The Roman leader laughed and he said, do you think this man is going to come for you? When this news went back to Mu'tasim Billah, he was sitting in his court drinking water. Drinking water. The cup, when he heard this news of just one sister, by the way, even though there were many captives in that time, it was the story of one sister, her cry, he dropped his cup. And all the people in the court asked him, what's going to happen? Like, what's happening? In that moment, he said to the people in the court, i.e. the Muslims, what is the place in the Byzantine Empire which has never been touched before? Tell me that place. And they said, there's a place called Amuriya. No one's gone there before. No one's taken that territory. On that moment, Mu'tasim Billah, he mobilized all of his forces, and he said he mobilized an army as big as about 50 to 100,000. And he said, we're going to go to that place, Amuriya, because it's fortified, it's protected. So what Mu'tasim Billah, he did is he went to that place, Amuriya, he took over that land, and he equipped himself in a way which is said that no other previous Khalifa had equipped himself. And it is said that his cavalry was so large, I think all of us have heard this statement before, his cavalry was so powerful and large that when the first batch reached Amuriya, the last batch was leaving where? Al-Iraq. He did all of this. Why? Of course there were other captives, but one Muslim sister cried out. One Muslim sister cried out, and the ghira Mu'tasim had said, release the entire cavalry against them. And because of this one sister, not only did Mu'tasim Billah rescue this one sister, he rescued all of the captives. And also what happened? When a leader who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets out with a pure intention, he gets something which he didn't even set out for in the first place. They conquered Amuriya at the same time. They conquered a land, even though that wasn't even part of the plan. The plan was to rescue the Muslims that were held captive at the time. And this is what happened in the time of the Abbasid Empire with Mu'tasim Billah. And historians say 70,000 of the Byzantines were passed away. And not only did Mu'tasim Billah do this, as a symbol to establish the greatness and the azama, the status of Islam and the awe of Islam, the huge iron doors that were at the entrance of Amuriya, he pulled them off the doors. He took those doors back to Iraq and placed them on where he was staying in Iraq, to show that in the Islamic tradition, in Islamic belief, you do not come near our women whatsoever. It's a red line. It's a complete red line. This is something that cannot be disputed whatsoever. And this is something Mu'tasim Billah, he understood so clearly, so well, that he couldn't even finish his drink of water. It dropped from his hand from shock. That this was happened to one of the people that was under my custodian, under my guardianship. And he released an entire cavalry so large that no previous Khalifa had done to rescue the Muslims. And in return, they took part of a land that was never even thought of conquering, Amuriya. That's just one example. The second example, subhanallah, refers to our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In Medina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed the Muslims with the establishment of a political authority. And that was why Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam made the hijrah from Mecca to Medina. it was their stronghold. And it was from that place Islam began to spread from Medina to all corners of the world, even as far as Europe, from Medina. In that time, it's known that there were a lot of clans and tribes from the Jewish background. One of the clans we may have heard of is Bani Qaynuqa. Anyone heard of Bani Qaynuqa, Bani Qurayza? Yeah? They were known to be famous clans. They had quite a heavy presence when it came to the markets. They owned a lot of the markets. And sometimes they would play games with Rasulullah and the Sahaba. So what happened, one of the wives of the Ansar, she went to the market to purchase some jewelry. And while she was sitting, waiting to be served and waiting for her jewelry, one of the men from the clan of Qaynuqa, he played a trick on this woman. And what did he do? He understood very well, wallahi, he understood very, very well what the awrah means to a Muslim lady. The nakedness of a Muslim lady is something preserved. Only her maharim, only her mahrams can see it. And to a degree, in one case, only the husband can see the awrah of a woman completely. The man from the clan, he came with a fork and he started to damage and rip the cloth of the woman from the Ansar. When she stood up, her nakedness was shown. And she screamed and she cried out. Because this is something sanctified that Islam says no man can see it. When one of the Muslims saw this take place, he intervened and he got into a scuffle and he got into a fight with that man who did this. He overcame that man in strength and he killed him. As a result, the Jewish clan came and attacked that man and killed him. When this news reached Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Khalas, enough is enough now. Like, enough is enough." Even though they were playing games again and again with Rasulullah, but this was a red line. This is something that couldn't be compromised. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that I'm going to gather the entire clan for their mischief and what they're doing, and he was going to execute them. It was only at the plea and the begging of Abdullah ibn Ubay as-Sulul, who said, "Please, Ya Rasulullah, don't get rid of them." Rasulullah said, "Fine, but I'm going to exile every single one of them. I'm going to exile every single one of them." Bani Qaynuqa was then exiled from Medina. Again, I just want to reiterate, dear brothers and honored elders, this is just regarding two women we've mentioned. We haven't mentioned a land, we haven't mentioned a people, we haven't mentioned a country. This is just two women. I want to ask you a rhetorical question, brothers. My mother, my auntie, my older sister goes by the name of a name that you have all come across, unless you're really young. Her name is Afia Siddiqui. Have you guys come across her name before? Do you guys know where she is right now? Shout it out. Where is she? Where is she? And why did she why was she captured for?
To make a mockery of us.
100%. Exactly what the Romans did, and exactly what Bani Qaynuqa did, and exactly what the Americans did today. This is a lesson to show, brothers, that the nature of falsehood and the nature of evil never ends. It just comes in different forms and times. Nothing changes. It's the same principle but on different faces. It's the same principle but maybe in more polished ways. It's the same principle but in different styles. Batil, falsehood and evil will always be the same. One woman. Now I want to mention a few facts here, because in terms of the resources we have today, I'm going to name only about 6, 7. In terms of the resources we have today, I can make an oath by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that no other time have Muslims possessed this level of power before. And I'll just narrate a few. Current day Pakistan, where Afia Siddiqui was taken from, possesses 165 nuclear warheads, 180 JF-17 fighter jets, and they are all operational, with almost 100 more on the way. An 800-man battle tank. Subhanallah, do you know the Pakistani army, they've actually named one of their tanks Khalid. Where do you think they got this name from? Khalid bin Walid. They've even got a tank which is by the name of Fahad. Fahad in Arabic means leopard. Leopards aren't meant to stay when they're hungry. Leopards aren't meant to stay in hangars when they're hungry. Khalid bin Walid, radiallahu anhu, what did he say in a famous statement? He said, Me jumping into the ranks of the enemy on a cold night is more beloved to me than spending a night on my wedding night with my wife. That's what Khalid bin Walid said. This is what the artillery and arsenal in the Pakistani army is named after. But they're not enacting those names. And I'll come to more. Turkey has around 257 TB2 drones and is developing its own stealth fighter as we speak now. Egypt has over 1.3 million personnel who are active and are reserves combined. Saudi Arabia, just in 2024, spent $75 billion on its defense mechanisms just in 2024. And listen to this fact, dear brothers. It sits on 267 billion barrels of oil. Do you know what 267 barrels of oil is equivalent to? It's a mind-blowing fact. 267 barrels of oil, dear brothers, can fuel the entire world for the next 8 years. For the next 8 years. This is including the jets of America. This is including the missiles and drones of Israel. Saudi Arabia possesses this oil. Why? The dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, what did he say? وَارْزُقْ أَهْلَهُمْ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ. Put thamarat, put provisions in this land. This was a dua from Ibrahim alayhi salam's time. When he left his family there and he had to go away and they left him in a valley with no agriculture and no riches there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to the dua of Ibrahim and placed in that land riches and provisions that are not known to man and still yet to be discovered. Kazakhstan is the world's top producer in uranium. You know what uranium is? It's an element that's used for nuclear energy. And there's an organization known as the OPEC. It's the organization which controls the petroleum and which countries export it. It's made up of 11 major Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the UAE, Iran, etc. This organization controls 70% of the world's proven oil reserves, and they are the ones that can influence the prices at which oil is served. Now, subhanAllah, brothers, this is only like about 7-8 facts I've mentioned. You could probably produce an entire book with 200 pages on how much resources that the Muslim Ummah possesses. I want to ask you guys a question, inshallah, and this one is not rhetorical. With resources like this, with money like this, with oil to this amount that we possess, with nuclear heads we have at our disposition that are just parked up and they're only displayed for military shows. Let me ask you one thing. Did Rasulullah possess one nuclear head? Did Rasulullah did he even come to know of the oil that is found in Saudi Arabia today? Did Rasulullah even have access to nuclear energies like Kazakhstan has today? Did Rasulullah possess 1.3 million personnel who are active and reserves combined? So why was it that Rasulullah was able to come to the defense of one woman whose aura was uncovered? She didn't even die. And why was it Mu'tasim Billah? He had to travel on horse and camelback. They didn't have jets where you could get from one side of another in an hour or a couple of minutes. He had to go on camelback, horseback, in cavalries and groups to rescue one woman. They haven't even died yet. They wasn't, wal-iyadu billah, I have to say this, they weren't raped. They weren't touched. One was smacked and one's aura was uncovered. Yet Rasulullah did this. I want to ask you a question. Why were they able to do that for? When we have more resources today, compared and combined to maybe all of the first four khulafa compared, we have more than them today, but we can't even rescue one woman, Afia Siddiq. Why do you think? Al-Wahan. Does everyone know what Al-Wahan is? Al-Wahan, just to clarify, is Hubb al-Dunya wa Karahiyatul Maut. The love of the dunya and hatred of death. What else? What else could that be? That Wahan, what do you think is stopping? I just want to make a point here. I've mentioned about 7-8 countries. Although Iran's attack on Israel was on a base of nationalism, wasn't for Islam, how many people fled from their so-called homeland in Israel and they traveled to different countries around the world? That was just Iran. That was just Iran. And it wasn't even Iran in its full arsenal. And that was on the basis of not even La ilaha illallah. That was like a nationalistic thing that took place. Why do you think? One brother, Jazakallah khair, he said Wahan. What else is it? What do you think? Disunity. Anyone else? Who says, sorry, one more time? So if that brother can say louder.
Islamic leadership.
Islamic leadership, Jazakallah khair. Anyone else? Think about it. Nationalism, Jazakallah khair.
No shield.
Mumtaz, perfect, no shield. What the brothers have mentioned altogether is the perfect answer. That the Muslim states today have adopted a idea or form of unity based on nationalism. This has never been there in the history of Islam before. In fact, nationalism is a very new idea. Everyone heard of the Sykes-Picot Agreement? The Sykes-Picot Agreement is, probably a little bit older or younger than 100 years old. That's all it is. And they carved up our lands. Do you know why they carved up our lands? If you actually read the history, they carved up our lands because Britain needed oil. That's actually why they didn't do it for anything else. They caused all the turmoil in our lands, all the disunity. Why? Because they wanted to find oil. Now, I want to ask you a question here. All of what I mentioned in the beginning, and I haven't mentioned thousands of other facts, if all of these resources and all of this economy and all of this manpower was put into one force, under what the brother Jazahullahu khairan, what he said of a shield, let me tell you something. Do you think anyone would even have the courage to even spit at a sister from a distance? Do you think they'll have the courage? No. They'd have no courage. Because this would form one of the most formidable forces in history. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this time, as time has moved on, we've discovered so many new provisions, so many new ways, sophisticated ways of defending the ummah, no one would even touch us. But the problem is what the brothers have mentioned today. The only thing that is lacking, my dear brothers and honored elders today, is the unity around a political Islamic authority. A political Islamic authority. Look at, subhanAllah, I lived in Egypt, brothers, for 5-6 years. Wallahi, it hurts me so deeply that I was in a country that is literally neighbors. The Rafah crossing, you could literally walk. You could walk from Egypt into Gaza. Forget rescuing one woman. Let's set the bar down even lower. This I have in my hand, they can't even throw this over. Why? Because they have come and they are dealing with their politics on a basis of nationalism. So long as our country and our borders and our soil is not touched, we do not care what happens. Same, unfortunately, with Pakistan, which is one of her citizens. Subhanallah, she's such a pure, beautiful auntie. Afia Siddiqui was taken away. They can't even go and get her back. Can't even go and bid, because they have submitted to a higher supreme authority in the world, the Western political system in the world, and they don't have the courage to do so. The only thing that will put all of these resources and arsenals into effect is when the Muslims realize we need to unite upon one thing and one thing only, which is known as the kalima of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, إِنَّمَا الْإِمَامُ جُنَّةٌ يُقَاتَلُ مِنْ وَرَائِهِ وَيُتَّقَى بِهِ. The Imam, the leader of the Muslims, is the shield. Behind him you are protected, and behind him you fight. Like the brother beautifully said, there's no shield today. We have so much resources that if we came together as a force, no one would even question our power. No one would have the courage to do anything to one Muslim woman. Yet, subhanallah, how many people have died since the beginning of Justice 2023 genocide? I would say it's not even the figures that people are saying. I would say it's 500,000. Much more. Wallahi, today, even if you look at what's taking place today, and this is heartbreaking, dear brothers, there are babies who have reached stage 5 of starvation. Stage 5 starvation means even if you gave them food, it's too late now. Do you know why it's too late? Because their internal organ system, they've shrunk and is broken. It's only a matter of time before they die. And like I said, dear brothers, batil and falsehood can come in many ways. What did Fir'aun do? What did Fir'aun do to the male infants year after year? What did he do? He killed them off. It's the exact same thing that Israel is doing today. They know that if they kill off the new baby and generation, there won't be anyone to claim back their land. Batil comes in many ways. And like we've said here very clearly, the only thing that is stopping the ummah, the only thing that is stopping the ummah from uniting is literally one thing and one thing only, and that is the Islamic political authority. Islamic political authority, which isn't found anywhere else. And just to give you some idea about this, dear brothers, I was mentioning to Brother Faisal in the beginning of this talk You know Umar radiallahu an, what this Islamic political authority does. I'm going to mention greats and then I'll mention just normal human beings. Umar radiallahu an, he would cry and he would be upset, and he said that I fear on Qiyamah, not that insan would account me. I fear on Qiyamah that a donkey or a mule may account me in front of Allah because it had fallen on a road that I didn't pave smoothly enough. Where did this belief, where did this come from, this accountability? Whilst, forget looking at the Middle East, let's look in a first world country like UK. Let's look at one of the richest boroughs in London, Kensington. There are people who are homeless. Whilst the elite of the world today, looking at UK, they're living in lavish lifestyles. Umar radiallahu anh himself, he would go scouting in Medina, and when he heard the baby crying and the mother was just stirring water in the pot, boiling water, what did he do? He went to the Baytul Mal. A companion was with him by the name of Aslam, and he said to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, let me carry this bag of flour for you until we go there and cook it. He said, Ya Aslam, أتحمل عني خطاياي يوم القيامة? Are you going to carry my mistakes and sins on the Day of Judgment? Where did this mindset come from? It came from the belief in Islam that a ruler is accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he is in charge of the flock that he is looking after. And it's a system that believes in accountability to Allah before anyone else, whether people are looking or not. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, one of the later khulafa to come, it was said that he would shake in his sleep randomly. Randomly he would start shaking and trembling, and he would sweat and he would start crying. And when he woke up, his wife would ask him, look, why are you crying? He said, ذَكَرْتُ صَبِيحَةَ يَوْمٍ يُقَالُ فِيهِ إِمَّا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ وَإِمَّا إِلَى النَّارِ. He would wake up and he said to his wife, I remember that there will come a morning and a day where it will be said to me, either go to Jannah or go to Jahannam. I.e., he knew his accountability that Allah placed on him because he's in charge of people. That either one day it will be said to him, Ya Umar, you either go to Jannah or you either go to Jahannam. And this is a mindset that they had. And it's a system, unlike the current system we see today, which doesn't hoard wealth. 95%, dear brothers, 95% of the world's wealth sits with 5% of the world's population. Make that make sense, please. How are we starving? How are people starving today? How are people having to work 2-3 jobs, sacrifice on the family unit, can't do tarbiyah of their awlad properly because they're worried about earning money? But all of the resources that Allah Azza wa Jal has placed in the world, and Islam says ensure that there's fair distribution so that everyone can have their own share and enjoy a perfect balance of life. That's not happening today because there is no Islamic political authority that can share this wisdom today. Wallahi, that's the only thing missing. That's the only thing missing. And the regimes today, no matter how decent they are, and I'll say this from my heart. When I was in Egypt, I was there at the time of Muhammad Mursi, rahmatullah alayhi wa ghafarallahu lah. Even though he had good intentions, he entered a framework or a system which was broken from his core. And I'm going to back this up with an ayah from the Quran. Muhammad Mursi, he was Hafiz of Quran. He had grounding in Islamic knowledge. And from his own good intentions, he entered an infrastructure which was rotten from his core. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says beautifully in the Quran, He says, أَلَمْ تَرَى كَيْفَ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا كَلِمَةً طَيِّبَةً كَشَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. Allah Azza wa Jal, He's giving a rhetorical question to the believers. He says, have you not considered the example of a good word is like a good fine tree whose roots are firmly planted in the ground and its branches sprout out in the open air. Its branches sprout out and is firm. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about a filthy word, a bad, evil word. He says, وَمَثَلُ كَلِمَةٍ خَبِيثَةٍ كَشَجَرَةٍ خَبِيثَةٍ اجْتُثَّتْ مِنْ فَوْقِ الْأَرْضِ مَا لَهَا مِنْ قَرَارٍ. And this is the last point I want to conclude on today, bi'idhnillah. That Allah Azza wa Jal says, and then have you considered an evil word? An evil word is like a word which has been uprooted out, it has no stability and it's always weak. I want to make a contrast between these two ayahs to the Islamic political authority and the Western authority that exists in the world today. Anyone that goes into the Western political arena thinking he can make change, thinking he'll be able to make a difference, he won't be able to make a difference. Do you know why? It's because the soil upon which that political system is on is a rotten soil. You could put the best of mankind in there, and you could put the worst of mankind in there. Sadly, the result will be exactly the same. But at the same time, how Allah Azza wa Jal describes a good word, like a good tree, planted in, deep rooted into the earth, is based on what? Good soil. And I don't exaggerate when I say this, wallahi. Anyone from this congregation today, if an Islamic political authority existed in the ummah today, and any one of us were put forward and elected, we would prosper. Do you know why? Because that soil can only bring forward prosperity, khair and goodness for anyone. And it's a normal contrast and example. You place somebody in a good atmosphere, he'll become good. You place the best of man in a bad atmosphere, eventually he will become like that. Or at best, he'll be defending himself, he'll be firefighting. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to really open our eyes to understand Islam is a complete way of life. Islam has a defense mechanism. Islam actually has a mechanism to offer Islam to the entire world. The only thing that is standing, wallahi, between 2 billion Muslims today that possess the best of resources that have never been seen to mankind is just that political shield. That Islamic political shield known as Innamal Imamu Junnah. It's the framework. It's nothing to do with individuals. How many good people have come into the form of Islamic leadership? They've just been normal human beings, but what they've achieved was great. Because they've come into a framework which is not there for themselves and not there to make capital gain, but is there for the betterment of mankind. And that's what Islam comes from. Allah Azza wa Jalla, what does He say? وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you are only but a mercy for mankind. And in different tafasir, it says the rahmah is also linked to Islam. Islam is the rahmah for mankind. So the only thing, dear brothers, that is stopping us from becoming the best and the most glorious ummah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, again, is for the Muslims to unite under one shield and call for that. And the only way that will happen, dear brothers, is if we start realizing Islam as a way of life and calling for it. That is the only way. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us of those and make us of those who see Islam as a deen. Deen means complete way of life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who have ghira for our women, and inshallah see the day Afia Siddiqi is liberated. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring about this political authority so that Masjid al-Aqsa can be restored to the gardens of the Muslims. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us under this political authority, this shield, to see the future conquests and prophecies that Islam has promised to us. You know, dear brothers, you may be thinking that in the time of 2025, when you look at your own current reality and stuff, you may be thinking in regards to the history of Islam, in terms of greatness, in terms of what you could achieve, you may think, look, that time isn't for me right now. Like, who am I? I'm just a normal average Joe. I'm normal. I haven't achieved anything great. You know, one thing that you have to change very quickly and drastically, dear brothers, is the perception of yourself. Your perception of yourself has to change greatly, and I'll tell you why. You know, you may be thinking that there's no hope for the ummah, there's no hope for yourself, and you may be thinking, look, I've got my own struggles I come across. Who am I to now think I can change the world? Who am I to think now I'm going to bring about some change? You know, subhanAllah, there was a man, and he is our Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He had more hope in you than potentially he had in the Sahaba based on this hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَدِدْتُ أَنِّي لَقِيتُ إِخْوَانِي. I wish and I yearn one day that I could meet my brothers. And the companions radiallahu anhum, what did they say? They said, أَوَلَيْسَ نَحْنُ إِخْوَانَكَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. Are we not your brothers, O Rasulullah? And the Prophet replied and he says, La. He says, no, you're not. أنتم أصحابي, you're my companions. وَلَكِنْ إِخْوَانِي الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِي وَلَمْ يَرَوْنِي. That my brothers are those who believed in me but they haven't seen me. This applies to every single Muslim in this room today. The Prophet ﷺ classified you as his brother. The Prophet ﷺ classified you as someone very close to him because you believed in his risala even without seeing him physically. So in a time where there's rife and unimaginable amount of oppression today, take it upon your shoulders as the brother of Rasulullah ﷺ to bring about that change. So that bi'idhnillahi ta'ala on Yawm al-Qiyamah, we can meet the Prophet ﷺ at the hawd, at the fountain, and drink from his hand and be admitted into Jannah, inshallah. جزاكم الله خيرا. أقول قولي هذا جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
Alhamdulillah, that brings the talk to a close. May Allah reward the speaker and all of you for coming and accept from all of us. At the start of this gathering, I asked every brother here, what does unity mean to you? And now that we have seen what true unity is, that is rooted in a political system, is very deep rooted and structured, and it is the foundation. Now I want to ask you, you see what it looks like and what we have currently lost today. This cannot just end as a thought, because I want to remind you of something. What you heard tonight, you will be questioned about Yawm al-Qiyamah. Not just that you have attended, but whether you have reflected. And not whether you have just reflected, but whether you acted, because this ummah is in need of people who are going to carry its weight. This ummah right now, it's got crisis in Gaza, silence in China, oppression in Egypt, everywhere around the globe, in Hind as well, humiliated. And for all of our emotions and heartbreak, one truth remains: we are over 1 billion, but we are still unique. I want to remind everyone, this is something that's not above our pay grade. We cannot use this excuse that yes, this is something that's beyond us, this is above us. The very least we can do is propagate this truth of Islam as a system and as a solution for all of mankind, not only just Muslims. This is not just a political crisis as of now in our community. This is a crisis of a vision. Because if we do not know the solution and how to work towards it, how can we ever come towards this? How can we ever work towards it? So if tonight, inshallah, has moved you to be able to want to do something which will guide you towards this solution, we were going to look at the greatest man who walked this planet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and look how he established this deen. How he made this deen a complete system, a source of unity, and a shield for this ummah, and a guide for revival. We will be looking at this seerah not just only as a history lesson, but rather as a roadmap on how to achieve this. May Allah make us those who respond when the truth reaches us, who rise when this ummah is suffering, and who carry this deen with sincerity, wisdom and courage. وجزاكم الله خيرا. بارك الله فيك.